Well, mark your calendars because Thursday is Canada's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This is the first year it's being recognized as a federal statutory holiday. The creation of this holiday, one of the 94 calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission back in 2015.
September 30th is an important day for us because it's the first time in the history of Canada that we have a special day in which we can acknowledge the existence of survivors and the experiences that they've had.
Now, that is the TRC's former lead commissioner, Murray Sinclair, talking about this upcoming holiday and why it is so important. Since the commission ended, Sinclair has continued to be a vocal advocate for remembrance and reconciliation. Well, our next guest hopes that Canadians will treat the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in a similar way to Remembrance Day. Michelle Good is the Cree author of 5 Little Indians. She joins us right now in Kamloops, British Columbia. Michelle, thank you for being with us today.
Just wait. I love you, but let me just do this, okay, Jack?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're getting some bleeding audio in the background there. But, Michelle, let's continue our conversation here because, as we said right off top, this was one of the calls to action made by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the creation of this holiday. So how important is this recognition for residential school survivors and intergenerational survivors, would you say?
Well, I think it's tremendously important for survivors to really have an indication that people take this reality, this troubled reality, seriously, and that they're prepared to take time on this day to reflect and to consider and perhaps reconsider what they think they know and take advantage of resources that are available to provide them with an accurate recognition of the truth of what in fact did happen.
What they think they know. What do you mean by that?
Well, since I wrote the book, since the book has been released, I've had so many people that have reached out to me, readers who have said, non-Indigenous readers who have said, I just had no idea, but now I'll never forget. And we can't avoid the fact that we were told a story that wasn't true about residential schools. And those stories were that it was a well-intentioned endeavor, that it was meant to educate Indigenous people and to help prepare them for a life in non-Indigenous Canadian society. And that was not the case. And, many people have been furious in their responses to me in terms of how they feel they've been so deeply misled and how it's inspired them to, as I say, reconsider what they think they know and to engage in a process of re-education, if you will.
It's interesting you say that because we certainly have heard from politicians, even after the discovery of bodies at former residential schools, saying that the schools, the institutions, were actually meant to be these positive things. So when you hear a politician saying that, what does that say to you?
It reinforces my position that there is a great, giant, and damaging myth about what these schools were. There's currently a dialogue going on in Edmonton about renaming a street there, a boulevard, which was named after the Catholic Bishop Vital Grandin. And in a letter that he wrote in the late 1800s, he said that our intent is to humiliate these children when their ancestry is made known. And by the time we are finished, there will be nothing native about them except their blood. So this was a person who was instrumental in insisting that these schools be established and continued. This was the objective.
Now, as we say, this is a federal statutory holiday, the first time ever, but not every province is actually recognizing it as a provincial holiday. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that they need to smarten up. I think that they need to get on board with this and to give everybody across the country, regardless if they're a federal employee or a provincial employee, an opportunity to reflect in a solemn way about this terrible reality that we continue to live with.
Now, a few days ago, as you know, the Catholic Bishops of Canada, they did issue an apology for the Church's role in the residential school system. There's been a cry for an apology of sorts. And I'm going to read in part their statement to you. We acknowledge the grave abuses that were committed by some members of our Catholic community: physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, cultural, and sexual. We also sorrowfully acknowledge the historical and ongoing trauma and the legacy of suffering and challenges faced by Indigenous peoples that continue to this day. It ends. We, the Catholic Bishops of Canada, express our profound remorse and apologize unequivocally. Now, it goes on to say that the Pope will meet with a delegation of Indigenous survivors in December, and that the bishops, along with Indigenous partners, well, they're going to work with the Holy See in the hopes of convincing the Pope to actually make a pastoral visit to Canada. What do you make of that apology, of that statement, and what you're hearing from the Catholic bishops?
Well, I mean, it's always good to see somebody accept responsibility, but it's been decades. It's been decades in the making, and I hope that those Indigenous leaders that do in fact go to Rome are able to achieve something meaningful for survivors in Canada. But I also feel obliged to echo the words of the luminous and brilliant Maria Campbell, who says, we don't need apologies. We don't need more apologies. We have a closet full of apologies. What we need is our land back. What we need is adequate resource sharing with the rest of Canada to enable us to once again be self-determining and self-sufficient. And so I acknowledge the value of the apology, but it must be more, and all of the apologies, but they must be more than performative. We had in 2015 the apology from Stephen Harper, who in the next breath denied adequate funding to search for the missing bodies of children who never made it home, which was, a request that came out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So, it must be more than performative. It must be meaningful. It must be attached to action.
So looking ahead now then to the day itself on Thursday, how do you hope it will be marked by Canadians, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous? What do you hope comes out of it?
Well, I really hope that there is dialogue between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians, that non-Indigenous Canadians participate in planned events that will be happening across the country, and that they will think of this as a solemn day for solemn remembrance, and not that it's just a day off from work, good day to go to the beach or the park or something, that they will legitimately participate in a day of solemn remembrance.
Michelle, I want to thank you for speaking with us. I appreciate your thoughts on this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's Michelle Good, the Cree author of the award-winning novel 5 Little Indians.